Okay, so I have us recording, so we're ready to go. All right, so it sounds like today we've got the individuals that have joined us are looking at more in terms of doing regular research and not a big project such as a thesis or dissertation, which is fine. That gives us something to start with, and that's what we'll focus on. So my name is Terri Summey. I am one of the librarians here at the ESU Library. I've been here quite a while and work with a lot of the different areas in terms of doing workshops and doing library instruction, and then also working with students at the reference desk as they have questions. So today we're going to kind of just hit into some of the basics when you're starting to do research. What are some of the steps that you will want to go through? How do you work through it? And I'll use, currently I'm a PhD student in the School of Library and Information Management. So I'll use some of those, some of the things that I've learned to really talk about and look at what it is, the steps that we will go through. And some of the things that I've learned in terms of working with my own topics in terms of research. Because a lot of times when we are doing research, we may be doing what's called original research, a research where there's not a lot that's been done. There are times, a lot of times, especially as a student, you may be doing what's called a literature review, where you're going out, you're writing a paper, and you're reviewing the literature that's out there, and then pulling it all together in a concise package, and doing an overview. You're not trying to share everything, but you're needing to be able to look at the resources that are available and then pulling them together on a particular topic. And so we'll look at some of that because one of the things that I know students struggle with is if you're not finding the exact article on the topic that you're looking for, especially if you're going for a more specific topic. So it may be, we'll talk about how you break those topics down. We'll talk about how you can find information to get you started with that. And we'll talk about the different databases and resources that we have through our library that will help you out. So, getting started. One of the things that we have is we've got research guides that are available through the ESU Library. That is the tab that is at the top. And I can actually go through all of those different tabs just to kind of let you know what they are, which would kind of get us started. So from the library's homepage, this is our virtual branch. The first tab says Discovery Search. What this does is the Discovery Search searches materials that are, it says search William Allen White Library and Beyond. So that searches for materials that are not only in our library, but it searches for materials that are in libraries all over the world. So you're not just limited to what we have here at Emporia State University. And especially for graduate research, that's really important because there's going to be areas or materials that you might need that we're not going to have. And I'll talk about getting those in a little bit. It also searches what we call a general database. And so when you search that, it's searching Academic Search Premier, which is what we call a general database. What that means is that it searches lots of different topics, but it doesn't go in depth in any topic. When you are doing research at a higher level, especially graduate students, you're going to be you will want to search the databases that are in your field, which kind of then brings you to the next tab, which is the Databases tab. This tab gets you into our A to Z list of all of the databases that we have. And you'll notice it says that we have 130, which can be kind of overwhelming when you're starting a research project because you may not be sure, where do you start? What 130, which one of those do you pick? And so one of the things that our A to Z list does is you can limit it down to the various subject areas. So if you're a SLIM student, you can limit it down to library and information science. If you're a psychology student, or in your case, school psych, you're going to limit it. Psychology would work, but there's also going to be some overlap with schools and with education, obviously. So you're going to probably look in a couple different places. SLIM is also interdisciplinary, depending on what your research project is. Mine's a good example. I'm looking at emotional intelligence with public service librarians. There's not been research done on that. And so one of the things that I've had to do is expand out, and I've had to look in the health fields. I've had to look in the business fields to learn a little bit more about my topic because the information isn't available in my own field. And so those are just some things to think about, that there is going to be some interdisciplinary research that you may need to do, and you may need to reach into other fields to do that. But you can limit down to the databases by selecting those different fields. All right, so this provides you, not only does this give you a list, but it also provides you, it says psychology experts. It provides you with a librarian contact here in the library. That is the person, or for SLIM, it provides you the contact there. It happens to be the same person for both of those. So that provides you a person that you can contact if you have questions. You can also always contact me. And my information is available on the webpage. But any one of us, you know, actually any one of the librarians, you can use our chat feature that's on our webpage to be able to contact us anytime you have questions doing research. So email, I get a lot of emails from different students as they have questions. So the school counseling, I'm also the education librarian. So since you kind of, you know, walk both sides, but I think you're probably more in the psychology area. I think school counseling, is it in the psychology department? Yeah. So, all right. So looking at the databases, we start out at the top with what we call best bets. So for psychology, there's the major database for psychology is PsycInfo. And then Psych Articles is a piece of that, helps you to get to the full text articles. There's also another database further down called Psychology and Behavioral Sciences Collection. When I'm searching, I usually will search both of those just to see what information I can locate. The nice thing about the Psychology and Behavioral Sciences Collection, and the same thing would be with the Library and Information Science Full Text, is they come through a company called EBSCO. And so a lot of our databases will come through, they mainly come through two different companies, one called PsycInfo and one called ProQuest, or one called EBSCO and one called ProQuest. And so with the EBSCO databases or the ProQuest databases, you can't do cross-platform, but when you are in the databases, you can go ahead and you can search several databases. So from the EBSCO platform, which would be the Psychology and Behavioral Sciences Collection, up here at the top where it says Choose Databases, it will bring up a form and that will give you multiple databases. So this is where you can do that cross-disciplinary searching. So for example, my field is library and information management. And so when I'm searching something, I'm going to do library literature and information science. I might do the library and information science and technology abstracts. There's a good chance I could add in some education databases. and then go ahead and click OK. And I always add in Academic Search Premier since it's a general database. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll do, and I'm running just for the recording piece. I am running with 2 computers, so I'm doing things on different ones. So I'm going to go ahead and add like the education databases here. Click OK. And now it says searching, and it lists one database, but it says show all. So I'm searching more than one resource at a time, which is really kind of nice. You can also do that with the PsycInfo and the ProQuest resource. You can go through and select more than one database. One thing that is also really nice when you're doing graduate work, you may run into resources that you want to use that are theses and dissertations. And we do have access to all of those through theses and ProQuest theses and dissertations. So that allows you to get to those that are full text also. I found some of those helpful in looking at my own topic because that's where research had been done in the area of emotional intelligence with like patient care. And so I was able to get some research articles that way. All right, so this is just kind of getting you started on some of the things. We really have, I've kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but we'll go back and talk about topics too. So let me get back, I'm gonna go ahead and get back to the library's homepage. And I'll keep the databases open. So to get to the library's homepage, you can Google ESU Library, or it's library.emporia.edu. And so that will take you to the library's homepage. So the next tab on there is the Journals tab. We'll talk about that when we're looking for full text resources, because that is our journal listing where you can go in and look to see what journals the library has access to. Now, as distance students, if there is something that we have here in print, either in a magazine or journal or a book, you can ask to have those materials sent to you. So if it's a magazine or journal article that we have here in print and it's not available online, which there are some you may run into, you just have to let us know, and I'll tell you about how you do that, and then we will scan the article and send it to you. If it's a book that you need, same thing. Let us know, and we will check out the book to you and mail it to you. So those are options that you have if you're at a distance to be able to get the materials that you have. If you are within 30 miles of Emporia, or you come into Emporia on a regular basis for classes, then we do, I guess, maybe assume or figure that you can come in and pick up the materials yourself and check them out here. So this is for students that are at a distance to the campus and are not regularly on our campus. Okay, the last tab is the Research Guides tab. And under this tab, we have a variety of research guides in various subject areas that we've created. Part of the reason for me jumping to this tab is because I'm going to show type in literature review, which will take me to a page that I have. Oops. Okay. All right. So this is taking me into advanced exercise physiology. I'll move this into a separate place, but it's talking about the literature review and the process that we go through when we're completing a literature review. And so one of the first things you need to do, obviously, when you have a research project or assignment, is to select a topic. And that sounds easy. However, research has shown that that's not an easy thing to do. In fact, one of the things that that research has looked at in the library field is that the emotional and the effective nature of doing research. And one of the things that a good way to describe it is like riding a roller coaster. And so if you're feeling a variety of emotions every time you have a research project, you're not alone, because like I said, it's like a roller coaster. So one of the first things you need to do is select a topic. And it may be that you start out with a broader topic, and then you have to kind of narrow down. And especially in this day and age with the amount of information that is out there, I've discovered in terms of doing my own research that I could spend years reading and never get any writing done. And so that's where narrowing down and focusing your topic and developing your argument is probably, that's a really important step. But to do that, you'll notice that on the graphic that that's step 3. So it really talks about selecting your topic in the beginning, then you search the literature, then you develop your argument. So what does that mean, or why is it in that way? Well, looking at research is kind of like looking at an inverted triangle, where you start with the bottom up where it's very broad, and then you work towards the narrow. And so one of the first things you do is look at a topic. I usually tell students, find something that's interesting to you, something that you want to know more about, something that maybe fits in with your profession. Maybe it's something in your current position at work. And so, or maybe it's something that personally affects you. So think of something that you really are interested in and you want to know more about, that you're curious about. Because when you're doing a research project, you're going to spend time with this topic. And so you want to make sure that it's not something you don't like, because if it's something you don't like, I always liken it to going to the dentist. I like my dentist, but I don't like going there. And I just get, I sit in the chair the entire time, really tense, and my neck clenches up, and I'm tired when I get out of there, and I'm sore because I just don't like being there. So when I get the card from the dentist that says, you have an appointment to make, I hang it on my refrigerator and I put it off for a while. So I figure if I can put it off 2 or 3 months, then I don't have to go as often. And so I think a lot of people do that with research projects. You get the syllabus towards the beginning of the semester, it says you need to do a research project, and then people put it off. They hang that syllabus or that assignment on the refrigerator and kind of wait a little bit because they're not quite sure where to begin. And so, like I said, selecting the topic is one of the first things. And so when you're on the roller coaster, that's kind of that first hill that you kind of chug up a little bit. You're not going very fast, but you're trying to think about that. So like I said, ways to find topics, think of your profession. Like I said, think of personal interests. Look at textbooks that you're using. Look at material that you're covering in class. There's a variety of ways to come up with topics that you might be interested in. So my dissertation topic, in terms of picking the emotional intelligence piece and reference and public service librarians, well, the last piece was easy because that's what I do. I am a reference and information services librarian. The first part, I happened to be in a workshop where they mentioned emotional intelligence. And I thought, that's a cool topic. That's a topic that I think that's characteristics or traits that I think librarians should have if they're working with the public. Especially since there's the concept of library anxiety, where students, when they come into a library or virtually try to use a library, one, they'll avoid it because they're intimidated by it, but also they think that everybody else knows how to do it. And they're the only ones that don't know how to do research. And so I think if you have librarians who have those emotional intelligence skills, which are knowing your own emotions and being able to control them, and knowing the emotions of others and being able to help them manage their emotions, and using that knowledge for successful interactions and relationship development. So having that, I feel, is important for a librarian to be able to connect with people that come into the library. And so it was something that just connected when I heard about emotional intelligence. I thought, you know, reference librarians should have that. I'm interested in knowing what research has been done on that. And so I looked and so that's where I selected my topic. It's still a pretty broad topic. And I also threw in customer service and relationship building. There's a concept called customer relationship management that's used in the business world. And so I threw that in. And so one of the things that I needed to do then was I needed to learn more about it, because I had just heard of emotional intelligence. I could not have rattled 7 years ago when I first started on this, could not have rattled that definition off to you because I had to do research on it. I really wasn't sure. I kind of had an idea what the concept was, but I didn't know for sure. And so that's where you head into step 2, which is search the literature and try to figure out, start finding some articles that give you a broad overview. That's where you're at that base, that top of that triangle where it's broader. So I looked for resources on emotional intelligence. I needed to learn more about what it was. Where did it come from? Who developed the concept? What did it mean? So starting to look at that broad picture and figuring out. So looking at different topics. Every time I do research, one of the first things to do is start with that broad picture. See what has been published on in an area. Look to see what others have written. Look to see what information is located out there. And so kind of getting that, and then that helps you narrow down into more of, and so that's step 2, searching the literature, just to kind of see what's out there. So what I found with my topic was, there's been some work on emotional intelligence in the library field, but only with leadership. And so I knew that there was a gap there. I was able to find a lot of information on what emotional intelligence was and where it came from. And so that was very helpful, learning more about the concept. And then I needed to look to see how it had been used in other fields. Had it been used in working with people? Had it been used with customer service? And so I was able to find things first in nursing and the health-related fields, working with patients. And to me, that makes a lot of sense, because if you're a patient going into the doctor or going into the hospital, you're going to have some anxiety and nervousness that goes with that. So I see a really good connection with that. I could also see that connection in terms of the business world, where you're forced to go in and maybe ask somebody for help or talk to a stranger, which as humans we avoid doing. So searching that literature, getting that broad overview. Sometimes I tell students it's like, it's a working knowledge. It's like your elevator speech. If you were, when we're here at Emporia, we use the tallest building we have, which is like the towers here on campus, which is 8 floors. And so it'd be like if you're getting in the elevator on that first floor and you're riding up to the 8th floor, what is your elevator speech about your topic? So you're wanting to learn a little bit more about it so you can tell somebody. I've done that a lot through the last 7 years, because every time I mention emotional intelligence, a lot of times I'll get a blank look, and so then I need to describe what it is and why I think it's important. All right, so one of the things, one of the topics I've got on here, since this was this was done for a health phys ed recreation class, is looking at the base running speeds of college baseball players and how to improve it. And so that's just kind of a topic in like I said, the phys ed health promotion area, the sports area. And so that's another good topic because there's not a lot written on it. So one of the things that I need to do is, then it says develop your argument. So I need to narrow my topic down. And so that's why one of the things that I'm looking at with narrowing my topic down, because I could go on forever looking at all the stuff on emotional intelligence and customer service. But I narrowed it down to do reference and instruction librarians that have won awards have the emotional intelligence skills. How do they score on an emotional intelligence test? And there's several of them out there. I had to select one, so that's narrowing my topic down. So now I'm looking at do reference and information service librarians who have won awards how do they score on the bar on emotional intelligence test, or the EQI? And so I've taken my broader topic, and now I've worked it down into a much narrower topic. And that's where I'm coming up. I also need to come up with my research questions. How do I do that? Well, one way to do that is when you're finding that overview, and you've got that overview of the information, is to go out there and start thinking about the various concepts or various things that are in your topic. One way to do that is to visually represent that through a concept map. So I'm going to have you go to a site, open up a new tab, and I'm going to have you go to text to mind. So it's TEXT and then to mindmap.com. So it's text, the number 2, mindmap.com. So it has one up there that's looking at the months of the year. This one is one that I use with students. I think this is really cool. I don't know, I'm just fascinated by it. But it has you where you can go through, so I can highlight what's there and I can get rid of it. And you can set up a free account and log in, but you can go out and you can outline what it is that your topic is and what it is that you're doing. So, and you can add to this as you're going through your topic. So I was looking at my topic. I'm going to start with my broader one of emotional intelligence. So if I draw my mind map, it's going to be pretty blank. It's just going to have one thing there. But now I want to look at, so I was interested in knowing how does emotional intelligence work with libraries? So I'm going to put, and my focus is academic libraries. So I'm going to put academic. Well, I'll just do libraries. So I'm going to do libraries. So if you have your own topic you're working on, you can do that just to kind of play with a little bit. Okay. All right, so I'm doing this slowly, so I'll draw my map. So you'll see now one little thing comes out now from libraries. So I can put a lot more in there. So under libraries, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tab in, or yeah, so hit tab, that indents again. So I'm going to do academic, and I'm going to do customer service. I could do public. I could do reference and information services, librarians. And then I found out that a lot of the research is done in leadership. Maybe librarian traits and skills. And maybe user experience might be something that might be part of that, because that's kind of where you're looking at customer relationship management. All right, so let me redraw this one. Okay, so tab in, that's the academic, customer service, public, reference, and information services, librarians, leadership, librarian, traits and skills, user experience. Okay, so that's just one section. Well, something else I learned looking at emotional intelligence is that there are different models for emotional intelligence. So underneath that, I want to do that shift tab to outdent to go backwards. Now I can do models of emotional intelligence. And so there's the ability model, and that's Caruso, Salovey, Mayer. And there's the trait model. And there's the mixed model. So when I click Draw Mind Map, you'll see it throws out now another. That's like models. BI. Ability model. Okay. Now, underneath those, like the trait model, there may be several people that have developed a trait model. So I could even go further out with that one. So I could go, Goldman is one of them, and then Shoot is another one. So you can see how, as I learned more about the information, how this is developing it out. Maybe user experience, maybe I begin to think maybe that belongs better under customer service. So I could put customer service under user experience. So if I want to move it down, I can do that, tab in, and now that's going to move customer service under user experience. So I can sit here and I can play with this to kind of get my concepts out there. Part of the reason for doing this is to figure out what are the concepts that you want to search. And so I said that, well, and one of the things underneath of the models of EI is how do they measure them. And so I could go into that and put the different measurements there. So you can see every time I add something to that, and I can move the bubbles around, make them more compact, print it out. I can save these so I can come back to it. But that's helping me come up with different ideas so that when I start searching for it, I kind of know what I'm looking for. It gives me the different concepts that I'm going to want to search. And I'm going to find these. I'm going to continue adding to this as I do my research. And so starting to sit and visualize my topic and think about the different areas that I might find it in. Because when I went out and did a search on emotional intelligence with public service librarians, I didn't find very much. And so, or reference librarians, I didn't find very much. So that's where I needed to expand it. So then I started looking at, well, where has this been done? So that's when I discovered, well, it's been done in the health field. So I could put health field or health industry or whatever. I'll do health industry. So I can do that shift tab back twice so I can get to that, to another one. And then I could put in, it was with nursing and patient care. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing more of this. This kind of gives you a start and a tool that you can use as you're doing research to really, like I said, kind of map out and keep track of what it is that you're looking at, or keep track of the key terms. Because then when it comes down to searching, and so, yeah, so then I could also put in like business with the customer service and customer care. But that starts giving me then my ideas of what key terms I want to use when I'm going through and searching. Let me just stop and check real quick here. I'll let you guys play with this a little bit. Are there particular, for both of you, are there particular projects that you're currently working on or looking at research, or just are we looking at general knowledge? Special areas of what?
Gifted students.
Gifted students, okay. Are you taking the gifted class? No, okay. Yeah, and I think my name comes into that class. I don't know, is that the one that Connie Phelps is teaching? Yeah, so she usually puts my information in there for people to contact. And there is a research guide specifically for that. There also is, if I go back on these research guides, there is where I click on just the LibGuides here in the back area, just to go to those. We have over 100 and some research guides. So there is one for library and information science, and we try to put things out there that would help that. Library and information management resources. There's also, for the gifted class, I know that there's a research guide specifically for that. And I'm not sure if there's one specifically for school counseling. So with a lot of these, we try to go through, trying to think of the gifted, characteristics of the gifted. SD 850, is that it? Okay. So yeah, there is a research guide for that my picture pops up on because that's one that I've worked with. And so I talk about, so on all these guides, we usually show how to find books, how to find periodicals, what are some of the best databases to use, electronic resources, just to provide you guys a background and some information that you can go through, and it'll just kind of give you some ideas. I just went to, so when we were on that library guide that I was on, sorry, probably went too fast. The library guide here that I was on, up there at the top where it says LibGuides, that jumps me into this whole list. If you start from the library's homepage, you can also do this. Down here on the side banner, where it says I want to, and I want to find a research guide, will also take you to that page. So this menu, and this is one of the menus I didn't get to. So I want to find a database will take you to that A to Z list. The I want to find a research guide will take you to our list of all the guides, our alphabetical list of guides. I want to request an interlibrary loan. That you're going to use for a couple of reasons. One would be mostly to get materials sent to you. So if there are print materials that we have here in our library that you would like to have mailed to you, or if it's an article that we have in print that you'd like to have scanned and sent to you, you can click on that request an interlibrary loan. The first time you go in there, it's going to have you fill out personal information. So once you fill out that personal information, you'll never have to do it again unless something changes. But you fill that out, and then you can request, like I said, either something that we own here, or it's also useful to request things that are not owned by us, that we need to get from other libraries. So interlibrary loan is a service that we can use to get materials from other libraries. And so you don't even have to know what library it belongs in or it's at. All you need to do is just know the item that you're looking for. And I can show you, I'll show you here in a little bit some tricks that you can use to get to that without a lot of typing in the information. I'm all about expediency, and less typing is better to try to get to the information that we want. All right. So that'll get you to the different guides, and like I said, it has a lot of different things over there. I didn't do everything. Check my account allows you to see what you might have checked out. Most of the other stuff are things that are not going to be applicable to what you're wanting to do. So, any questions so far? I've been talking for a long time. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the library guide that had the literature review on it. Okay, so I've selected my topic, I've searched the literature, and I've started creating that concept map with the information that I've discovered when I've searched the literature. So one of the things that the next thing is to do is to develop my argument. And so that's where you start getting more specific. And that's where I probably should turn it over to Joelle, because she's probably better at this than I am in terms of developing your research argument or your research questions. But you need to figure out specifically what do you want to know. So what I wanted to know is, do reference and instruction librarians who are good at their job, do they have emotional intelligence skills and traits? Do they possess them? And I limited even further by selecting the mixed model of Baron and the test that goes along with it. So it's, do they have these skills as measured by this particular test and this particular model? And the way I got to that was to look at all of the models out there, and I determined that the one I selected, I thought fit best with the competencies of reference and instruction librarians that have already been defined in the literature. So by going through and searching the literature, that's where I came up with a lot of that information. So I could go back here to my reference and information services librarians, back to my mind map. And that's where I can add in under reference librarians. I can put in like behavioral guidelines and competencies. And then I might put in another one of skills and traits. And redraw. So you'll see that added now a couple more items to, and I'll move the library one up. Take this out. There we go. And redraw. And depending on the size of your screen, on the one screen I'm using, I'm kind of going off of it. I think I've got one up here too. And you can move them around. Interesting thing about this is it kind of keeps floating around while you're working on it. But this is a way for me to track different terms that I might use and different things that I'm searching. So as I'm looking through things, I can find different articles, and I can find different terms that I might use. And those terms I can find in different places. One place I look for terms is when I'm reading through an article that's on my topic, I can search and see what words they use. So that gives me an idea of the information or the terms that might be used. It might give me things that I might not have thought of. And sometimes you just have to think like a thesaurus or think broadly too. So if I go back to my base running for baseball players, I want to improve the base running speeds of baseball players. So when baseball players are running the bases, what are they doing between those bases? Is it a long distance run or is it a sprint? They're sprinting, right? So in looking at that, I might look to see, because maybe there's not a lot of literature out there on the speed and improving the speed of baseball players while they're running the bases, but I bet there's literature out on sprinters as they're trying to run, or looking at other sports. There might be basketball players as they're running down the court, or like I said, sprinters for track and field, or soccer players as they're sprinting down the field, or a wide receiver, improving the speed of wide receivers. So that's where I have to think broadly, to think about my topic and try to figure out, if I'm not finding the exact thing, then I need to break my topic down a little bit and start looking at the different components that are out there. And so this is one of the things, creating this mind map is a way to be able to keep track of the different areas that I'm looking at. Okay, so I've kind of done that. I'm going to go back to steps to conducting a literature review. So I developed my argument. I developed the question that it is that I want to search. And it might be starting broad and working down to the more narrow. Especially if you're just writing a shorter paper. I don't know, how long is the paper that you need to look at? Yeah. Well, most papers I would say are under 10 pages or maybe 10 to 15 pages at the most. And if you're looking at things, characteristics of the gifted or things and working with the gifted, there's going to be a lot of information out there. So that's when you want to narrow down and figure, and so one of the things that, as a future school counselor, you might be looking at as a school counselor working with the gifted, or, something along those lines. How might that impact you? So looking at something that would be interesting. One of the things that I do when I'm first starting a project, like I said, is to go out there and that step 2 where you search the literature and just go out and kind of see what's out there. So let's say I'm interested, and I will tell you, so this is where we say don't go to Google, but I do sometimes when I'm starting a research project, I don't go to Google itself. Google Scholar is a good, I use it a lot of times just as a starting point to see what is out there, and that's at scholar.google.com. The reason I do that is because, one, I don't know where it's searching, but it does search a variety of different things. And so I could go out there and I could put gifted students and school counseling or school counselors, just to see, maybe that's an area where I'm interested in, just to see what's out there. And so you'll notice it gives me a variety of resources kind of starting out there. And so it might give me it might provide me with some ideas on what I might look at. So, there's a book up there, Counseling the Gifted and the Talented. Another one, Education of the Gifted and Talented. Handbook on Gifted Education. Counseling the Gifted Student. Then you get to some gifted students with learning disabilities, implications and strategies for school counselors. So that's getting a little more specific. And then another one that's also unspecific, underachievement of gifted students. What do we know and where do we go? Underrepresentation of minority students in gifted education. Problems in recruitment and retention. So those are like 3, just by kind of looking at these, that's 3 different areas or topics that we could look at. You've got, looking at gifted students, you've got underachievement of gifted students, you've got gifted students with learning disabilities, and you've got minorities in gifted students or gifted education. There's another one, the one at the end is multidimensional perfectionism in gifted students. So, looking at perfectionism with gifted students might be another one. So this gives me some different ideas where I could branch off on. And so let's say I'm interested in that perfectionism. I'm wondering, is there more out there on that? Because that sounds kind of interesting. So a couple things I can do with this. So let's say I like this article. And one way I can look to get this article, you'll notice off to the side, it says PDF and then tnfonline.com. That means that this is available, PDF is available online, and I can get to it. So one of the reasons for jumping into Google Scholar and using Google Scholar is sometimes if I can't find the resource in our own library, my second step before interlibrary loan is to go to Google Scholar, because sometimes resources are appearing out there in Google Scholar that are full text online on the internet. So that allows me to get to other resources. All right, let me go back. Our articles are offered. Those available through the library. Some of them are, and so yeah. So what I do is I'm pretty persistent when I'm looking for articles, and so I will try lots of different things. So I'll click until they say, "Oh wait, you got to pay $30 for this article." And so let's say I'd like that underachievement. So maybe we do the underachievement piece because there's 2 articles on that. That second one, that underachievement among gifted students. It does say JSTOR, but it's not showing here that we have it. And so one of the things that I would do is I could go in and I can take a look at that article, the underachievement among gifted African American students. And so it's telling me, do you need access to JSTOR? But it's also saying it's in the school counselor. So that's where I'm going to take, first I'm going to take the school counselor. And I'm going to start with the library's homepage, and that's where I'm going to jump into this journals tab, and I'm going to search for the school counselor there. So this tells me that we have the school counselor and academic search premier. This one caught up. One screen showed me, there we go. One screen showed me more and one showed me less. And this one's coming up with it in ResearchGate, which is interesting. No, that's a different one. Let's see. Get back to underachievement among gifted African American students. It's interesting. I searched on 2 different computers and they're showing different results in different order. I'll just go ahead and search this with that right title. And I searched it exactly the same way. Can't explain it. Okay. So I can take the school counselor and take that title and plug it in or search it. Okay. Get to the library's homepage. Okay, so this is telling me that we have the school counselor in academic search for mirror from 1990 to 1997. We have it in that psychology and behavioral sciences collection for the same, master file premier the same, and the professional development collection the same, because they're all coming from the same place. So if my article, I look at this, the article that I'm looking for is January of 1995. So that fits within those dates, 90 to 97. So, so if I go here, I can click on any one of these links and it'll take me into the publication. And then I can go to my articles in 95. I've got 2 95s. Let's see, I was looking for 42.3. 42.3. Not sure why we have 295s. (42.3). And then I can go through and find my articles, and there's the article, Underachievement Among Gifted African American Students, Implications for School Counselors. So that article is there, and I can use, I can get the full text of it, and I've got it available there to read. Now, one of the things to look at too, when you are looking at articles, is looking to see if they're primary or secondary. When you're in a historical or a literature field, primary and secondary means something totally different than when you're in the area of psychology or your area of library and information management or health, phys ed, and recreation. Primary articles are the articles where somebody has done research, original research, and they're showing you the study and the results of that study. And they usually follow a particular format. They'll start with a literature review, they'll go into a method section, then they'll talk about the results of their study, and then they'll discuss it, and they'll end with a conclusion. And so that's what a primary research article looks like when you're looking in the academic world in a lot of different fields. Like I said, history and English are kind of different because in those areas you're going back to primary sources like the artifacts or primary documents, and that's where they talk, it differs. But a lot of the other fields, they all run that same, where you're looking at original research. Secondary sources are what we normally, that literature that you write, that we write for classes, or literature that we write, literature review is a secondary resource. Because all we're doing there, we're not doing our own primary research where we're actually doing the study. What we're doing is we're going out, gathering the information about different, the articles on our topic, and we're pulling it all in together in one source. So that's a secondary. So a literature review is going to be a secondary source. So how can I tell? So looking at this, it's talking about underachievement, and then it says the purpose of this article is to explore issues that affect academic success of gifted students and gifted African American students in particular. And then it concludes with recommendations. So I'm going through and it's giving me kind of the literature review. What are the issues? What are the issues? And then it talks about the different encounters. And it gives me some conclusions and recommendations. So one of the things I can see from going through this, one, it's not following that format where it provides a literature review and methodologies. And so I can look at this and say, okay, what they've done, this is a review of the literature. They've gone out, they've looked at the literature, and they've pulled in articles on this particular topic to write this. Doesn't mean this article is bad. I may look at some studies that help them develop this article, but literature reviews are good in the terms of it helps us to get a bigger picture. Somebody's already gone out and done some of the research for us, basically, in terms of a literature review. Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. Yeah, so if you're doing a literature review, can you use a literature review? Yes, definitely you can use one because it helps you provide an overview. And I'm going to show you a couple techniques that I use then to find other resources. One of the things that when I find an article that's right on my topic, one of the things that I do besides reading it is to go down to their references section. So I'll go and look to see where did they get their information, because that's a very good way to get to other resources, is to see what did they use. And so I'll go through and I'll look at the articles that they use to see if that fits in with what I'm looking for. So like there are special considerations in the counseling of gifted students. Let's see, I'm trying to look at. Yeah, there's death with honor, suicide among gifted adolescents, gifted children's fears, anxiety in the gifted, self-perceptions, determinants of underachievement among gifted. There's another one. Racial identity development among gifted Black students, if I wanted to focus on the minority side of it. Being able to look at, here's one, cop-out or burnout counseling strategies to reduce stress. So being able to go out and look at the research that they've done and see what resources they used. So that's one thing. A second one, so this is, we kind of merged from finding the full text of the article. I kind of jumped to how you can use that full text. So let's say we couldn't find that article here. Let's say our library doesn't have it. Maybe it falls outside the years. That's where I would go to interlibrary loan, and I would find the article through interlibrary loan. Now, I told you I don't like to type a lot, even in interlibrary loan, because you fill in the form, and I don't always like filling in the form. So a way to get around filling in the form is, all right, I've checked our holdings, we don't have it. I've checked I've checked Google Scholar, I couldn't find it out there. So the next thing I do is I go to interlibrary loan. So I'm going to start with our library homepage, and down here on this request an interlibrary loan, I'm not going to go to that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the title of the article and I'm going to plug it into this search box here. Because what it's going to do now, this, like I said, this search is a huge database. It may not find it, but a lot of times it will find it. And there it is. There's 2 versions of it. Now, because we have it, or there's 3, because we have it, it is saying it's available online. So I can access it online. I'm going to pretend right now that maybe I can't find it. It's not saying access online. So what I can do is I can click on this title and get into the full record and go down here, and it's loading. So one of the things that you can do with our catalog, because it does search libraries worldwide, is it will go in circles, take our institution, put it in the middle, and then it will go in circles around that institution to find where things might be located. So for example, this one does say Emporia State has it, but it also says this journal is held by Washburn University. So going in circles from Emporia State, Washburn is the closest place that would have that. So if you happen to be in Topeka, there may be books or items that Washburn has that you'd be able to get to. If you're online, let's see.
You don't have to have a student ID you can check out with the driver's license.
Yeah, you just have to talk to them because every university is a little bit different. So even just going through this might be, it just depends on what they're, I know in the state we have access, and you just go in and you sign up. This keeps jumping on me. So you can go in and you sign up. You can sign up for different, like KU has a special card for graduate students, and you just take your driver's license in there and show that you're an Emporia State student. You can, or tell them that you are, and you can sign up for that. But the cool thing about this, so let's say it's not somewhere I can get to. If I click on this request item right here, and then I log in, and I'll go ahead and log in with my account. What do you notice? It's filled the form out for me. So I double check to make sure, because since this is an article that I'm looking for, I double to make, I want to make sure, because you'll notice over here on the request it has article, book chapter, conference paper, thesis, dissertation. I want to make sure that it's an article request, because this is an article, and then I'll double check to make sure all of this is correct. Usually it is. So it's filled in the form for me. So I don't have to do the extra typing. I can just click submit request, and it'll send it through. And usually we tell students allow about a week for interlibrary loan to come from other libraries, because it goes out to like 20 libraries at a time, one at a time, and then it goes through a queue. Usually, unless it's hard to find, I've had some that have taken that long. Most of them come within 2 or 3 days. And so I've got the information that I need and I'm ready to move on. If it's an article, once it comes in, you will be sent an email that says that your article is here. And you just go over here where it says electronically received articles. If I click on that, my article comes up and it'll sit out there for 30 days. One of the things I'll do when an article comes in through here is I will go ahead and download it, print it, save it, have it ready to go, so that I don't lose it. That way, so I can either save it or open it up and print it, and that way I have it available. And so when the 30 days are up, I know that I've already printed it and I have it. Or I save it, most time I'll save it to like a flash drive or my hard drive, so I've got that. So that's kind of I had a student show me that. You know, it was one of those aha, duh moments, why didn't I think of that type of thing? When a student showed me, hey, this is a good, easy way to get to these resources. Oops. So another thing, remember we jumped into Google Scholar. So another thing that I'll use Google Scholar for is, let me go back. So when I'm doing research on a particular topic, you'll notice down here by this article on that underachievement among gifted students, it says cited by 28. That's another way to expand what you're looking for. So what this is telling me is that 28 other articles have cited this article in their research. And so this will get me to other resources that might be appropriate. Some of them may not be. Some of them are maybe things that really aren't what I'm looking for, but it does give me some other things to look at. So I do use this technique to be able to get to other resources to see who has cited that article in their own research. Now, if it's a newer article published within the last couple of years, chances are it hasn't been cited by anybody yet. So that's where you would go look to see who they cited, and then you can kind of, it's like building the branches on a tree where you keep adding to it. Okay, so I've hit a lot of different things. I'm trying to think of what else might be good to, so looking at, you'll notice when I did the Google search, I typed in gifted students and school counselors. Let's say I wanted to do school counseling, gifted students, or maybe underachievement of gifted students. So I'm going to go back to my databases here at the very beginning. And I'm actually going to go backwards and go to PsycInfo just to see what they have. I can start that by starting from the library homepage. clicking on databases, and I can go, remember, to that psychology section, and up here to psych info. And to do that, so I'm going to first start with gifted students. So when I do type gifted students, I come up with 7,628 results. That's a lot. So that's where I want to kind of, and so, but you know, if you're starting a project where your topic is, you know, your teacher says, do research in the area of gifted students, and you're like, okay, where do I start? You might start with a really broad search like gifted students, just because you're not sure what's out there. You're not sure what research has been done. And then I can use this to start narrowing things down. I did that already. And so when I went into Google Scholar the first time, I might have done the same thing. I might have just done a really broad search on gifted students to see where research had been done, what topics were popping up. Okay, so when I did that, remember I thought, well, I'm a counselor, so I'm interested in counseling. So I'm going to put in and counseling. No, I don't want to give you feedback at the moment. So now what happened? When I put in another word with that word and, now I've lost 90% of what I was looking for. I've gone down to 10%. What I'm doing is I'm making my search more narrow. Every time I and in another term, it narrows down my search. Okay, so, and remember, then I was thinking, well, there was some stuff on African American or minority students. So I'm going to put in and then I'm going to put in African American or minority or Latino or Black. And you'll notice when I did that, I put in the word and then I used a parentheses. What that's doing is, those are looking for synonymous terms. So it's telling us when I use the word or, it makes my search broader. So what I'm telling the computer is find articles that are gifted students and counseling, but I'm really interested in looking at minority, African American, Latino, or Black. So when I search this, I should get less than the 599. So once again, I lost about 90%. Now I'm down to 58 articles. That's much more manageable than the thousands of articles that I started with. So now I can go through and kind of look to see what resources are out there. They're looking at, you know, like academic achievement or some articles are giving me some other ideas up there. But there's also things like, here's one called non-white racial groups or race. I didn't even think about that. That might be another term that I could use. But I can go through and I can look at, here's another one, women or students of color. I can go through and I can look to see what are some other terms that I might be able to use to be able to come up with that. Another way to do that, I'm going to go back to one of these with the women of color. When I go through, so I look at titles, I look at abstracts, I look at actual articles. I go down here under subjects, and I look to see what else there is. They've included American Indians and Asians. I didn't even think about that. So I could add in those. It could be, you know, like I said, women of color, men of color. So I could put color in there. So in my search up here, I could add in or color, or Asian. And that's going to increase it. It should increase it a little bit. It added one more. Didn't add a lot. What happens if I put in non-white? Okay. So, or color, or Asian, or non-white. So yeah, it added one more article. So now I'm up to 59. So that's a technique where you can go in and do the searching to look for, like I said, every time you add in a different word, it's going to narrow your search or broaden it out because you're telling it to look for this or this or this or this. So those are just kind of the searching techniques to be able to find it. And like I said, I'll go through titles, I'll go through abstracts, I'll go through the subject words just to see if I can come up with other terms. So, other questions you might have? And I've given you a lot of stuff. One other thing I think that does come up is how do you cite these sources then? Except most of the departments on our campus will use the American Psychological Association APA style. There's a couple things. One thing that I use a lot is OWL. You can use that for MLA. You can also use that for Chicago. And so to get to that, I just basically go to Google and I Google OWL. And you get the images for the owls. But then the second one you get is this Purdue OWL, Purdue University. That's the, it's their online writing lab. And so they've done a really good job of going through and providing resources on how to do citations. So you'll see down here, they've got their APA guide. I use this all the time. They've got an overview and a workshop that has PowerPoints that go through about how do you use APA, and then they've got the formatting and style guide. And then over here on the side, they have all the different places that you can go to look up things. So if I want to know how to do in-text citations, I can go to that. If I want to know how to do the reference list, how do I do an article and periodical, how do I do a book, how do I do an electronic resource, I go to this all the time. We also, in those library research guides that we looked at, we do have a guide in, one of the guides is on APA. So that's also available for you to be able to look at. Well, they do. Some of them do. Not the articles themselves, but the databases. So that's what I'm going to go into next. So when I'm searching a database and I find an article that I like, one of the things that they've done is over here in this section where it says cite. It's usually kind of on the right-hand side is where that seems to be. I can click on cite and it will give me the citation, and because this is a psychology database, it pops up in APA first. It does give me other options here off to the side, lots of other options. But I'm going to stick with APA the 6th. And I can copy and paste this. One of the things I would want to do, you'll notice down here they've got a disclaimer that says, consult style guidelines to check the accuracy and completeness of your citation. That's one of the things that I do because like this one is an article out of Actually, it looks like it's out of maybe a book. Yeah, it looks like it's out of a book. So I would want to see, because it doesn't, so the one thing I noticed right away is it has the articles for the chapter, it has the title of the chapter, it has the book, but it doesn't have the editors of the book. And so right before the title of the book, it should say in, the word in, and then it should have the editors' names, and then it'll have the title of the book and the pages. So one of the things that I do is I copy and paste this into my paper, but then I go back and I check it. So I would go to OWL for a book chapter. And so here's the chapter. There is the chapter for the book, and I would go through and look at that and say, okay, it's missing the editors. So something isn't quite right there. And so I would need to go back and fix that. And so then I would go ahead and I would go ahead and add those editors in there. The other place that I notice a lot of times that they maybe do something not quite right is in capitalization. So a lot of the databases will provide you that to you. Google Scholar also will provide citations. So just grabbing one of these that's like underrepresentation of minority students. Down here it has cited by, related articles, looks for articles that are related to that topic, all 6 versions, and then cite. So same thing here. I can go in here and they've given me the APA citation. So I can copy that and I can paste that into my paper. And then I would just double check to make sure it's totally correct. So they are out there and available to copy and paste, and then I just go through and check them. So any other things that you can think of that would be helpful, or? Well, as you think of things, or if you come up with things, you can always contact us here at the library. You can always contact me personally. I'll leave you with my information because that would be, but you can contact any of the librarians for assistance.
Everybody, my daughters are always using saving onto the Google Drive. Just that, is that something you're recommending, and what's the benefit?
Google Drive is, it would, honestly, one of the things, so we will have workshops coming up on some of this stuff too through the library, and we're going to be taping a lot of those. One of the things that I use for saving resources when I'm doing research projects is a tool called Zotero. And so Zotero, it's a free tool. And I'll save papers and stuff out on Google Drive and documents, or I can save articles out there too, just so that I have them accessible. But also Zotero allows me to be able to, it allows me to go out there and be able to save my, and I can pull them in from, so that's where it's a longer thing in terms of how do you use this, but Zotero allows you to go through and pull in resources from like the databases. You can pull in the citations, And so let me go ahead and log in. Trying to remember which password I used for this. I know. There we go. Yeah, mine are on my computer. I pretty much do too. So one of the things with Zotero is you can see I've logged into mine. So I've got over here on my library, I have some citations I just threw out there when I was working with somebody. But I've got my dissertation research, I've got my PhD work, I've got research and scholarship, I've got work projects. And if I expand those out, I've got like research and scholarship, I've got a health book project, that's nothing in there. LibGuides assessment, library instructional design partnerships. So I can go out and I can save my articles in there, my citations. Cool thing about this, dissertation research is where I've got most of my stuff. I can go through this once I've saved all this information in there, and you'll notice there's different things. So like this is an article, this is a book chapter, no, this is a thesis. This is a book because it has an open book. This is a magazine article. I can tell by the different pictures there. I can go through and I can select these, and over here with cite, I can select the style that I want it cited in, and it'll create the bibliography for me. It is. Now, like I said, Zotero in itself can be an own workshop in terms of using it. There's another one called Mendeley. I'm not as familiar with that. I've mostly used Zotero. The other things that you can do is when I've got records out here, I can go through and I can add in, I can tag them. So I can add my own little headings to it, and you'll notice I've got a tag cloud over here. I also can add the PDF to the document. So here's that article. So I've just attached it so I can get to it. I just throw the PDF of the article on there, so I've got it available. I also throw in notes. So if I made like an annotation or some notes on this article, I can go and put those in too, and have those available to me. So.
I like putting things out and having hard copies with you.
Well, and I'll tell you, I do that too. For my dissertation, I have one box that's about the size of, this one big recipe box full of my note cards of where I've taken notes on the big cards, the 5x8 cards. And then I have another small recipe box. I'm gonna have to maybe expand to a second one that is packed full of the small 3x5 index cards. So I've been keeping them in both places. And I have a file cabinet full of articles. So I do have both. But this allows me to keep track of like my citations. I can share Zotero with other people. I can create groups. I can access my bibliography anywhere. Anytime I get into a computer, I can get to that. So if my articles are printed and sitting at home in the file cabinet, and I don't know, here at work, or I'm, visiting family in Nebraska, I can get to those articles because I've attached them out here. So this is one tool that we recommend. Like I said, we'll have a workshop coming up on that one. I'm getting the publicity out for that, but if you get the Hornet announcements, it'll be listed in there, and it'll also come through as a graduate student. You'll probably get a newsletter. I'm drawing a blank. Newsletter from the graduate school, and they'll be listed in there too. So, any other questions you can think? Anything you want to add, Joelle? I kind of took over your whole thing.
No, I have to tell you that just even being here, being in this situation, like academically,
makes me better. And so as you guys were talking, my own research ideas were going, and